Well, hello, freedom seekers. Tonight, we are here to talk about how to manage multiple lovers. And I'm going to talk about how to do it the way that's easy, liberated, and fun. You see, because when I first became non-monogamous myself, some almost 15 years ago, I learned how to manage multiple lovers, but it wasn't the easy, liberated, and fun way. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And one of the processes that we now teach, I teach, and my partner Kat teaches, is there's three steps to the process of living an easy, liberated, and fun life. Because you see, we are not taught. There is nothing in your life that has ever taught you how to live an easy life. Everybody says relationships take hard work. You've got to work hard to succeed in life. And all the different things that, that you've got to make sacrifices to make your relationship work. And all these kinds of things is what you're taught. And of course, then instead of living a liberated life, you end up living a life that is dependent. And, people in relationships become very codependent and very dysfunctional. Today, I was watching a training on narcissism, and it really is incredible how many people get caught up in relationships, even in non-monogamy, and it's just non-monogamy is no different than monogamous relationships from the standpoint that you have divorces in monogamy, you have breakups in non-monogamy, and divorces as well. You have dysfunction in monogamy, you have dysfunction in non-monogamy. And so all the same kinds of things are about the same unless you do these three steps. And that is reframe from monogamy to non-monogamy, and then transform. You transform your life. Kat and I are certified magnetic transformation coaches, and we help groups of people go through this process of this three-step process: reframing, transforming, and liberating their life. And so you transform by stepping into a new way of living and loving. You see, so often, because what we know from our monogamous lives is we know how to live a monogamous life, and we know how to have one relationship. We know how to have sex with one person. And many people don't do that so well, but then they become non-monogamous, where they're having sex with more than one person and they're having maybe more than one relationship. And so I found that in about the first 8 years, actually about the first 10 years, because the things that I'm talking about now and teaching these days, it took me 10 years in my non-monogamous life to realize that things weren't much different in non-monogamy than they were in monogamy, because they weren't easy, they weren't liberated, and they weren't fun unless you were having one of those fun moments, just like people in monogamy have fun moments. But I'm talking about just every day, ongoing in your relationship. And in fact, as I found that in non-monogamy, a lot of people will go from relationship to relationship and have multiple relationships and ending and starting new relationships. And, it's very common. And the reason why is that they want to try to keep it fun, and they haven't figured out how to keep it fun. And so this three-step process of reframe from monogamy to non-monogamy. Reframing is going out and getting new information about how to live a non-monogamous life. And I put a video out a couple weeks ago about two different relationship structures: monogamy and non-monogamy. They're two totally different relationship structures. And yet what we try to do so often in living our non-monogamous life, because we don't know any different, is we try to take and make that monogamous structure fit our non-monogamous life. And that's like taking the structure of anything, as I put in that video 2 weeks ago, taking the structure of a two-story house and trying to take that same structure and create out of it a multi-story apartment complex. And they're two entirely different structures. Trying to take the structure of a river and turn it into an ocean. When it flows in the ocean, it just dissipates, and you've got really not much left of the river, so to speak. And so there's structure is really important, and I talked about that structure in that video, and how our non-monogamous structure needs to be kept and be totally different than our monogamous structure. Sometimes that's really hard and difficult to do because we are all trained and taught, and everything we see around us, and even things that we learn in our society and culture, in our movies we watch, and the music we listen to, most of it is monogamously bent. And so it's a new structure that you need to learn in order to live a non-monogamous life. And it took me 10 years to learn that, and in my non-monogamous life. And then I was trying to make that monogamous structure, just kind of tweak it a little bit and make it fit my non-monogamous life. And that's where a lot of difficulties come along, and that's where a lot of struggles happen. And that's why relationships take hard work. And that's where Kat and I, we got to a place in our relationship where it was taking a hard work. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. And that's where really sparked a lot of the different kinds of things that we teach now. And nobody else is teaching this stuff. And so I hope that you'll find it helpful. But then transforming, like I mentioned, is stepping into then a new way of living and loving, liberating, and so that your relationships and your life are liberated. Now, a liberated relationship does not mean that you break up or divorce or change that relationship in a way that you're no longer in a relationship, although it can mean. Because you see, one of the things also in reframing my life is that I found that divorce should be something that it happens more often than it does, so that people can be free to go about their life and find better fits for them. And one of the things too with relationships is that, as I mentioned in that video on the two different relationship structures, monogamy has a time and space element to it. That time and space element is forever. Non-monogamy, on the other hand, shouldn't come with that kind of time and space element. And one of the things that it's been, research material has been out now for like 40 or 50 years about where you'll find the greatest amount of happiness in your life. Doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or out of a relationship, or if you're monogamous or non-monogamous, whatever your life is at the moment, the way you'll have the greatest amount of happiness is by learning to live your life in the present moment. And yet we obligate our life, and we become dependent and codependent and dysfunctional in our relationships. And so we're going to talk about liberating your relationships and doing it so that your life and relationships become easy, liberated, and fun, what we call the ELF way. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Non-Monogamous Mark, also known as Mark Clayton, my legal name. And I really am an advocate for people living a sexually abundant life. I live that life myself, but I'm the co-founder of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association because I've been self-employed. I've been in business for myself for, 40 years. And I'm 63 years old, and 40 years I've been in business for myself. I just realized that I'm wearing the same shirt tonight that I had there in that photo. So 40 years ago, I started a business. And I built over my lifetime 3 successful businesses. And when my wife and I 15 years ago opened our marriage, I said, one of these days I'm going to use my business skills in order to make it so that we can further and advance the whole area and idea of non-monogamous relationships so that they are considered to be normal, not some alternative relationship that some people have that are alternative people, but to be totally normal as monogamy, just another option for people and a viable option for people. And so that's where then about 6 years ago, I co-founded Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. I live with my partners, a partner in Ventura, California, that'd be Kat, and a partner in Seattle, Washington, which would be Chris. I'm the creator of ethical and consensual non-monogamous families, tribes, and also travel. So ethically consensually non-monogamous families are families that all enjoy having sex together and they live together. Ethically and consensually non-monogamous tribes are people enjoy having sex together, but they don't live together necessarily. And there can be multiple families that all gather together to form a tribe, for instance, and multiple families, also individuals. And then also I'm the creator of ethically and consensually non-monogamous travel. And that I've owned a travel business in the past, and that is something that in the future that I'll be kicking off and getting into more in the future, particularly as I start traveling around, doing more world travels myself, and we get past this whole pandemic that we're in right now. I had gotten out of the travel business, fortunately, I guess, about 2 years before the pandemic ever hit, and that turned out to be a really great thing. But yes, it's a business and an industry I really love, because I think that's a great way for people to experience and grow in a life that is ethically, consensually non-monogamous. And so I live a sexually liberated life. When my wife and I opened our marriage 15 years ago, then I started out living a sex positive life. And that's really all that anybody ever knew and understood. But I started watching people, and I learned a lot by just observing people. And as I observe people, I realized that, sex positive is a good thing, because what that basically means is that as long as 2 adults are being consensual in what that they want to do, then even if it's not my thing, then they can do whatever they want to do. For instance, I'm not into needle play, and I'm not into a lot of heavy duty BDSM. And there's aspects of BDSM I really love, but I'm not into some of the really heavy stuff, and the Sado and the masochist type stuff. Now, BDSM can also mean slave and master, or sub and master, and various different kinds of terms, interpretations of that. But the thing is, though, is that there are things that, like, for instance, needle play, I am not into at all, and yet I totally respect those people who are consensual and they want that. And so that's being sex positive. Now, sexually liberated is something totally different. It's kind of like going from getting a 4-year college degree to go on and getting your doctorate, I would say. And so that's when I started to live a sexually liberated life a number of years ago, and I really started to grow in that, have a video training on that. So, be sure to take and watch that if you're not really familiar how that liberating yourself and liberating others in your life sexually can make a huge difference in your life and your relationships. Now, I'm a nudist. I'm available for love, sex, and relationships. And I decided to start commenting and putting that in there because, you see, I was doing this training a while back, and this person comes on and made comments, and I didn't realize she was hitting on me and trying to say, hey, hello, and I did not pick that up. It was just went right past me. And so, if when I'm in training mode here, and when I'm creating these videos and all, I may not pick something up, and it may go right past me. And if it does, then, my email is down there in the description box. Just get a hold of me that way, please. And because, yes, I'm available for love, sex, and relationships. Always enjoying more. And then I live an ELF ECNM life. That means easy, liberated, and fun, ethically, consensually, non-monogamous life that I create and love the most, maximizing my satisfaction and pleasure magnetically while coaching you to live your best ELF ECNM life. Maximizing satisfaction and pleasure magnetically, enjoying the ELF life, having more meaningful work and wealth, fun, keeping healthy and well, and love, more loving, connected relationships, having more sex with more people more often. You see, because I found that you can, when you magnetically maximize your satisfaction and pleasure, and why would you want to do anything except to maximize it? Can you imagine, your parents are raising you and said, son or daughter, I've had a great time in life. I've had satisfaction. I've had pleasure. But I don't want you to have anything close to as much as I've had. No. And don't you want with your own kids to maximize their satisfaction and pleasure in life and not just get into where, hey, everything's good? How often do you hear that comment? Hey, yeah, everything's good. Well, it can be good, but it can keep you from maximizing your satisfaction and pleasure. And oftentimes then we find that that's another place that we can get stuck. And as time goes by, anytime you're in a place where you're stuck, things are going to start to slip and slide downhill. And so we want you to take and create loving, connected relationships where you have more sex with more people more often. And I say loving relationships, that's for you to determine. There are people that say, well, hey, I just want to love my partner, one person, my spouse, and but then we want to have a lot more satisfaction and pleasure by having sex with other people. And certainly that's one way to do it. But, the thing is that you want to be a loving human being. You're not out there just to take and totally obliviate and use that other person for your total benefit and gain and none of their benefit and gain. And that when you do magnetically maximize your satisfaction and pleasure, you cannot help but to also increase the satisfaction and pleasure and spread more of it around, giving more satisfaction and pleasure to more people everywhere you go. And I'm not talking about just sexually here. This is where, you're in a better mood and you're going to pass that along to others. You're more creative in your thinking. And so that may translate into really helping other people solve things going on in their life and all kinds of things. But you really, when you maximize your satisfaction and pleasure, you will be contributing a whole bunch of satisfaction and pleasure to everyone, everywhere you go. Now, as I mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, and we're helping freedom seekers create magnetic ELF ECNM lives that you love the most. Living an ECNM life, maximizing satisfaction and pleasure. Learn to live a natural, normal, moral, honest, and authentic life, having more safe, sane, and consensual sex with more people more often, especially when you're in a committed relationship. And that's what we advocate and we teach, and we do everything we can to help people to live a life having more sex with more people more often, as long as it's ethical and consensual. Now, before we dive in any further into this video's topic, I want to give you two fantastic added benefits that you tell you about them that you get for watching the video. That's beyond what we are, your takeaways are going to be from the video itself. And so the first one is a free membership in the ELF Academy. Kat and I started the ELF Academy early this year, and we're giving out free memberships in that ELF Academy. And so click on that link that's down there in the description and get yourself a free membership and enjoy that. And then the second thing is to watch the video as we go through here, and somewhere along the line as we go along, I'm going to give you a discount code that gives you, this is a reward for people who actually pay attention and watch the video. But it's going to give you a 92% discount for our premier 16-week course, which is called 3 Steps to Create Your Easy, Liberated, and Fun Life Magnetically, where you end up shifting your life from being hard to being easy, from being obligated and dependent to being liberated, from being limited and restricted to being fun. And so, you might want to check that course out. And when we get to a place where I'll be mentioning that discount code, have some pencil and paper handy and ready so you can write that down or put it in your phone or your computer or something. Now, I want to thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel, hitting the bell when you subscribe so that you get notifications when I load another video or I'm going live, for giving the video a like, also for commenting and asking questions. All of these things tell YouTube and Google that they should be showing this video out there and showing it around, and I really appreciate it. So I really thank you for taking those actions. Now, maximizing satisfaction and pleasure magnetically. We're going to talk about how to do that a little bit, but not enough time in this video to touch on it a lot. When you get your free membership in the Elf Academy, one of the trainings that'll be there waiting for you is called this magnetic alignment stepping stones process. And that stepping stones process, it's an hour and a half, a 2-hour training. It's a 2-hour training that you'll get for free. And that's a training that we are in the future not going to be giving away for free. We're going to be selling it for $99. And so take advantage of that free membership while you can and get that training. Excuse me while I take a sip of water here. Okay, thank you. I really needed that. But and so take advantage of getting that training for free while you can, and get your free membership in the Elf Academy, and that training will help you to learn how to maximize your satisfaction and pleasure magnetically. Magnetically is really important here because, you see, I found that really learning how to do things magnetically is the difference between going back here to, going back here. It's the difference between being hard or easy, being limited and restricted, or being fun. And so that's the difference, is your magnetic energy. We're all born with magnetic energy. Some people refer to it as their magnetism. But you see, the thing is, we're born with it. And like all of there's 3 elements to our inner being: your magnetic energy, your divine sexuality, and right now I'm not remembering the 3rd element. I usually have right off the top of my head, but I hadn't even thought about mentioning that until I just was making the video here. But your magnetic energy, your inner being, your magnetic energy is one element of your inner being. And like all the elements, your genius. We all have internal genius. We all have magnetic energy or magnetism, and we all have a divine sexuality. But all of these need to be discovered. They need to be explored, and they need to be developed. They need to be experienced, and they need to be learned about, and then they need to be grown. And so what happens, though, is that so often in our lives that various things come along in our life, and through conformity, we learn to hide it away, put it in the closet, cover it up. All 3 of those elements: your divine sexuality, your genius, and also your magnetic energy. And, for me, by the time I got into school, I certainly knew that I wasn't any genius. And, how did that come about? Well, I'm sure it's things that I picked up from my family, and no, probably not from other kids, but probably my family. But I just knew by the time I got into kindergarten that I wasn't genius. I was not genius material. And I went through all the way through school that way. It took me until I was in my mid-40s to start to realize that there's genius within me. And I started to uncover that genius. And once I uncovered it, I started to discover it. And then I started to experience it. And I started to explore it. I started learning about it. And that genius started developing and started growing and just getting bigger. And so that's the same with your divine sexuality and also your magnetic energy as well. But maximizing your satisfaction and pleasure magnetically is important, because that makes it so that your life becomes easy instead of hard, and instead of being limited and restricted and obligated, you start to transform your life to where it becomes fun. And so there's a little test that we have here, living the easy, liberated, fun, ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. And we call this our magnetic self-test. And so you ask yourself and become aware. And today we're focusing the self-test on your relationships. We talk about this self-test and other ways that you can apply it as well. But today we're talking about your relationships. And so does my relationship, does it add to my satisfaction and pleasure nearly all the time? Or does it take away from my satisfaction and pleasure more than I want it to? See, I've saw and observed and experienced myself far too many relationships that are ethically and consensually non-monogamous. Yes, when people are having sex, they're having a great time. When they're doing stuff to have fun, they're having great times, but they're not always maximizing their satisfaction and pleasure. A lot of times things are going on and they're taken away from the satisfaction and pleasure that people have in their life. And so just ask yourself about this, about your relationship. Yes, even your maybe your wife or your husband, your long-term committed relationships. These are things where, as I mentioned earlier, is that one of the differences when you start to reframe from monogamy to non-monogamy, that is that, like Kat and I, we had to reframe, because when we first started our relationship, boy, it was just such an incredible, deep experience that, only thing we knew was monogamy. And I told her in the first couple of weeks of our relationship, I says, I'm going to do all I can to try to take and make this relationship come to a quick end, if it's at all possible for it to come to a quick end. Because otherwise, the longer we go along in this relationship, the more it's going to hurt if we ever break up. You see, that's because I was taking and applying everything that I had learned from monogamy and from breakups and stuff of that nature, and it just doesn't apply to a non-monogamous life. And so, that's where, if you're truly unconditionally loving a person, then you want the absolute best for them. And so, for instance, Kat's a beautiful woman. And if someone comes along that, that she just emotionally and mentally and intellectually and spiritually and all the different ways, she just finds that person's just a more ideal fit. And that person gives her so much more satisfaction and pleasure in her life. And unfortunately, then her relationship with me, if for some reason, was taken away from her satisfaction and pleasure, then it would be like, okay, time to end the relationship we have, Mark. And then that frees me, even though I have multiple relationships, that frees me whenever, because I can only manage so many relationships at one time. And so it frees me to when I end a relationship, it frees me to be able to go out there and find in the abundant ocean a new relationship that is going to be a better match for me today. You see, because monogamy teaches us that our matches have to be for a lifetime. But can you imagine if everything in life were done that way? where, you know, everything was to be enjoyed for a lifetime. Oh yeah, these mashed potatoes, I'm going to enjoy them every meal for the rest of my life. Oh, this job that I had when I was 16 years old, I'm going to enjoy that job for the rest of my life. Oh, you know, everything about it, about life, all the different experiences. We come to places where we come to a place in life where we end one phase of our life and we start a new phase of our life. And our relationships really don't need to be any different. In that, the only thing that should hold a relationship together is that two people deeply love each other, and because this "and" is very important, that two people deeply love and care for each other, and that the relationship adds to their satisfaction and pleasure nearly all the time. Shouldn't be hard work. Remember, we're talking about having a relationship that is easy, liberating, and fun, not hard work. And so that's where this test is really critically important. Now, are you good at solving problems? You see, because this is going back to a year and a half when Kat and I were in our relationship. Now, we had come to a place in our relationship where some things were going on in our relationship, and it was close to being over. And we've been together now for just over 7 years. 7 years last January, and that's where it was a deeply loving relationship, but we had problems. And the thing is that when we started having problems, we carried on what we had learned from monogamy. I mean, relationships take hard work, right? And so when you have problems, you've got to fix your problems, right? And you've got to work hard to fix those problems. You see, and so twice a week, we would devote several hours in an evening, because we both basically worked during the day. And so, you know, we devote twice a week, several hours in an evening, working on our problem. And we did that by having conversation around our problem, having reading books to get more material and more information to try to solve our problem. And you see, the thing is that whatever you focus your energy on, and your energy, your personal energy is your words, your thoughts, and your feelings. And even if what you're focusing your words, your thoughts, and your feelings on is not what you want, like we were focusing our words, our thoughts, and our feelings on the problem and trying to fix our problems. And it wasn't what we wanted. But whatever you focus and feed your words, thoughts, and feelings to, you will get more of that. And in this case, maybe you've experienced this or known people in relationships. Maybe they get out of one relationship, then get into another relationship. You know, they're really good at problem solving, as it turns out. And so what happens as a result is they get stuck in the never-ending maze of problem solving. You know, you solve one problem and you got more problems to solve. And the problems just keep coming. You know, if you're really good at problem solving, that's what happens, is you will always live your life with having lots of problems to solve. And this is not what I had started out teaching Kat in our relationship. You know, I had taught her this whole idea about your energy, and what you focus your energy on is what you're going to get more of, even if it's not what you want. And so there we were focusing our energy on not what we wanted, but trying to work hard to fix our problems. You know, and that never worked in my marriage. In the 34 years of my 27 years of monogamy, and then we had 7 years of non-monogamy. And so in my 34 years of my marriage to my late first wife, working hard to solve our problems never worked. We only got more problems, and they never went away. And we've spent a lot of effort and a lot of money trying to fix our problems. Well, the solution is not solving problems. It's not trying to fix your problem. The solution is creating a life that you love the most individually and as a couple. This is so different in a non-monogamous life, because monogamy teaches us that when two people become a couple, then they're one. Those two people become one, and it's the we and the us that takes over. The I and the me has got to take a second row seat to the we and the us. And so you are creating from the we and the us. And that does not create the strongest and the best I. And so what happens generally in relationships, and you've seen this yourself, you've probably experienced this. I certainly experienced it. Two people that get together in a relationship, and as time goes by, that we, if they're built that and created that we and that us is before the I and the me, well, that we does not bring out the best in those two people. And that us does not bring out the best in the individuals. And so it's almost like they support each other's slow slide downhill. Now, that's not 100%. There's always exceptions to people you'll see out there that have just really thrived in a monogamous relationship. But for the most part, that is what happens in non-monogamous relationship or in monogamous relationships. So is that over time, because it's not bringing out the absolute best in the individual, because the individual is being sacrificed for the we and the us, so it slowly slides downhill. And so to turn that around is you have to take and start creating a life that is creating the life that you love the most individually first. And when two individuals that are absolutely maximizing their satisfaction and pleasure in life come together because their lives just fit together really great, then that is where you have a great matches. But again, this is where with non-monogamy, we stay present in our relationships. The relationship is present for the day. I'm going to milk it for all the love and all the pleasure, all the satisfaction I can get out of the relationship for today without any attachment or commitment to outcomes down the road. Because that's what monogamy teaches. But in a non-monogamous life, if you have that commitment, then you're going back to putting the we and the us before the I. What if that I finds a more satisfying experience, maybe through their work, that doesn't work for you? Now, just as an example of this, is in living situations. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have ever guessed that I'd be in a situation of having Kat's daughter move in with us. And that's created a lot of strain in the relationship. And that we've lived together now for 7 months. And she's actually, today is her 21st birthday. And so she's turning 21 today. And, and it created a tremendous amount of strain. But you see, if my relationship wasn't solid and strong with Kat, and if I didn't know what that we have created and we are creating, then I would have found that it's time for me to go somewhere else. But the thing is that I kept having conversation then with Kat, because it certainly was on a temporary basis. It was taken away, chipping away at the satisfaction and pleasure, because of the situation, drama and all kinds of things going on with this daughter of Kat's. And so, for me then, I just kept having really great conversations with Kat, because again, we put our focus not on the problem, we put our focus constantly on what we are creating individually and what we're creating as a couple. And that's the same thing we learned back 5 years ago when we reached that point after a year and a half in our relationship where it came close to finishing our relationship and ending it and just moving on. And that we were working so hard to fix our problems. And then one day we were supposed to do like we had been practicing and doing. We were committed to working hard and trying to fix the problem. We were committed to it. And that commitment was that we made a commitment that twice a week we'd spend 2 to 3 hours in an evening working on our problems. And so we had gone and done that for about 4.5 months. And it seemed like the problems just got bigger. They got more. They're multiplying, you know. It's like the problems were all having sex and they're becoming more plentiful. And one day I showed up and because I lived with Kat part-time and lived with I had my own house and my other girlfriend in Seattle, so we're all in Seattle at that time, and my girlfriend in Seattle, Chris, she lived with me in my house, and so I split my time between Chris and Kat, and 50-50, and so then, and that's what actually that was part of what caused some of these issues, in that Kat was having great difficulty with me taking and explaining how I wanted to spend my time, and you know, wasn't necessarily how she wanted me to spend my time. You see, in monogamy, two people have ownership over each other. And so it makes sense that you have that kind of restriction and limitation. But that's not the fun life that we create in non-monogamy. And so we had to get away from that limitation and restriction. But that's what Kat had known. You know, I mean, she had just been at that point, she'd only been out of her marriage for a year. And so she had been monogamous for 26 years, 27 years or something like that. And so, you know, the non-monogamy was new to her. And the things that I was trying to teach her were new to her as well. And that was one of those things is that, yeah, instead of creating limitations and restrictions and obligations, you want to create a life that is liberated in your relationship and liberated in your personal life yourself. And so you create the relationships then that are easy and they're fun. And at that point, we weren't doing that. And so what I did is that after about 4.5 months of working on our problems, then I came one night to her apartment and I just said, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to, what I want us to do, I says, don't you understand what's happening here now? For 4.5 months, we've worked hard on our problems, trying to, you know, it's like we'd solve one problem and another problem would come up, you know, and we're focusing our energy. This is exactly the thing that I've been trying to teach you for a year now. About 6 months into our relationship, I started trying to teach her these things. And I says, you know, we're putting our energy on what we don't want instead of putting it on what we want. And when we focus our energy on what we want to create, both individually and as a couple, then we start working to create that. And when we work to create that, then life becomes easy and it becomes fun, and you liberate your relationships and your life as well. And so we had a discussion that night then about that, and we decided to put those problems on the shelf. You know, we can always take them off the shelf and dust them off and readdress them, but a lot of times when you go through this process and shift your energy, that's your words, your thoughts, and your feelings, you shift your energy to put your focus on, and put your focus on what you want to create. Then when you shift that energy, then those things you put on the shelf, they just rust away up there. They don't ever seem to reappear a lot of times. and then if you need to readdress one or two of them, then, you address them. But you're addressing them at that point from a different energetic place. And we found that when we did have to address a few things, sometime later, we're in a different place energetically because we're in creation mode as opposed to fixing mode. And by creating, then when we had to take and address a few issues later, it was like, oh, it took one conversation and it was done. That's all it took. And then we just moved on, creating the life that we love. And so that's the key there. And so, and why now, the topic here tonight is how to manage multiple relationships. You've got to take and be able to have these new skills in your life to be able to use first with one relationship. And for me, it was learning these new skills with my relationship with Kat. Now, even though I had already had a relationship with Chris at that point, I mean, when Kat and I got together, see, Chris and I have been together for 12 years. So yeah, Chris and I had been together for 5 years. And so I had already had one relationship at that point. And Chris was when she and I got in our relationship, she was the fourth relationship in total that I had, not like 4 in a line, 4 in a row. I mean, I was in a relationship with my wife, with 2 other girlfriends, and then I met her. And we hit it off really well. And so I says, well, let's start seeing each other. I've got these 3 other relationships, my wife and 2 other girlfriends. And after we had all been, I dated each one of them separately, and that went on for about a month. And then I said, in fact, my wife was on vacation and with her girlfriend, and she came home after a 2-week vacation, and I said to her, I says, hey, I'd like to cook a dinner and have all 4 of my partners there. My 3 new girlfriends, or my 3 girlfriends, and they were all fairly new because I had ended a year-long relationship that I was in with a girlfriend that I didn't see anybody during that time, and anybody else except for, so I basically had my wife and my girlfriend. And I went from that then, and that relationship came to an end, and I immediately then got into 4 relationships. I went from 2 to 1 to 4. And Chris was the 4th relationship. But then by the time that I met Kat, then I was down to 1. Chris was the only relationship that I was in. And then I met Kat, and then I made 2, and my relationships have blossomed and grown since then as well. And so learning how to manage multiple relationships, you want to apply these things that I'm talking about tonight. First, just try applying them with one relationship. And then once you start to really learn these new skills, because they are new skills, and once you start learning these new skills, then start to apply them to other relationships. You see, because like what Kat and I found, when I started trying to teach her these things that I had been thinking about and observing and learning about, some my whole life, and others just since I became non-monogamous. And so through conversation with her, then I wanted to discuss them with her and teach them to her, and then we could grow together. And so when we started to actually perfect that ourselves and develop these skills ourselves, then I was able then to take and bring my relationship with Chris in line with my non-monogamous life. And it's been a process. And I mean, the process is ongoing even now. As an example, 3 weeks ago, I think, 3 weeks ago, Kat and her daughter went on a little trip to Palm Springs that I treated them to, so that it was for the daughter's 21st birthday. It was like 3 weeks early, but that was the time that we could get worked out. And so they went to Palm Springs, had a nice time. And in Palm Springs then, that in the past, I've always tried to make sure that I maintain real, ongoing, regular contact. But you see, I'm wanting to grow my relationships where I'll have relationships all over the United States and the world as I become a global citizen and traveling the world. and after COVID's over, of course. And I want to have relationships that are just rich and juicy, lovely relationships that are all over the place. And so, like, if I have 10 relationships, can you imagine how difficult that can get to manage 10 relationships? I mean, I remember going to Munch's and having conversations about the numbers of relationships that I typically function well with. 3 or 4 is what I've kind of done always really well, and having 3 or 4 relationships at one time. You know, I get to even 2 relationships. That's just not enough for me. And so 3 or 4 relationships at a time has been, you know, fairly satisfying. But I can maximize my satisfaction and pleasure by having sexy, loving, caring, juicy, wonderful relationships. And I can see having 10 to 20 relationships and having them all over the world. But now, do I want to then create something that's complicated, that's hard to manage? How do I keep in touch with everybody? Well, one of the things is that I do like to send my people in my life an occasional card. And so I have, as I travel around, of course, like people will send postcards. And I have a program with a company that's online, and where I can then at any time upload a photograph of maybe somewhere I'm traveling to. And I can then upload that photograph and make either a postcard or a card out of it. And within just a few seconds, it is created. That card or that postcard is created, and I can send it out to one person, or I can send it out to 500 people. You know, as many people as I want, and so it's printed on you know, it's all over the internet. I upload the photograph that I want to put into that postcard or that card. And if you want to know more about this, then please make a comment or send me a message, because I'm not here to really kind of I'm a distributor for this company, and I think people love getting cards, you know, in the mail, not just an e-card, but a real card in the mail. It has so much more meaning to it. But yeah, I can send out 25 cards that, you know, are all personalized, saying, hey, Chris, I'm here in Tennessee and having a great time. And here's a photograph of something I did yesterday, and just wanted to stop and say hi. Where for 25 different people, it'll basically say the same thing. And I can do it individually if I want to, but I can make it say the same thing, but it'll be addressed to each person individually. And I can, in less than 5 minutes, send something out to all 25 people if I had 25 relationships I was maintaining. And so there are tools like this that are available that make your life easy and makes your life fun, because you're able to share your life with the people you stay in touch with. But the idea that you've got to try to stay in touch by texting and phone calls and emails, you know, every week even, it's exhausting. And that's not how you want to start managing your relationship. So one of the real key principles here in managing these relationships is that you got to set the stage. And I'm constantly working at setting the stages. I learn new things. And so, you know, that's where I have gotten, where I slowly have, because when I created my relationship with Chris and I created my relationship with Kat, it was something where it required a lot of maintenance and a lot of ongoing conversations and always, you know, checking in and touching bases, and that's very limiting and very restricting. And after a while, it gets obligatory. And so I have had to very slowly, because both these women became really attached to my constant attention. I'm a very attentive person. And I love ravishing my attention on women that I love in my life. But the thing is that I'd rather ravish my attention on the woman that I am spending time with in the moment, instead of saying, "Oops, excuse me, I've got to take a break because I've got to either send a text, or I've got to send an email, or I've got to call 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 other partners." And so you've got to set the stage in knowing that what is going to happen down the road with these relationships and these things that you start. And so I've had to actually wean Chris and Kat away from my constant attention, my being attentive. And as I had a conversation with Chris recently, I said, that, yeah, I know I only talk to you maybe once a week, and sometimes, only once every 2 weeks, and sometimes twice a week. It's just kind of like when I'm really wanting to, when I have the time to. But when I'm spending time with someone else, then I'm spending time with that person. And so you want to set the stage, and that's what I'm doing with Chris now, and I've done that with Kat as well. So when she went to Palm Springs with her daughter, yeah, there was no touch points during that time, but yet the old me, there would have had to have been touch points, because she would have been expecting that from me, and she had an attachment to those things, and like, wow, how come I'm not hearing from him? And we set the stage for our own life, and this is where learning how to create a life that you love the most, that is maximizing your satisfaction and pleasure, is so important to be focusing on. And it's a learning process, like one of the first slides: reframe, transform, and then liberate. Okay? Go back and visit those steps. And those are the steps that I'm talking about here. And you apply that same process of reframing, transforming, and liberating over and over and over to make it so that your ethically and consensually non-monogamous life works for you in a way that maximizes your satisfaction and pleasure. Now, you're not me. And so whereas I want to be able to have lovers in at least 10 to 20 cities around the world. Not and probably more than half of those will be international cities in other countries as I travel around. And so in having lovers like that, then, you may not want something like that. You may think, well, I met a guy, it's been years ago now, probably 10 years ago, that he wanted to travel around, but his wife didn't. And they were monogamous, so he kind of just was stuck. And so, that's where in a non-monogamous life is that it's no longer the we and the us. So you end up being stuck in something that is less than maximizing your satisfaction and pleasure. Because then when two people come together, whether they come together once every 2 or 3 years, because some of the people that I'll have relationships with in the future, I'll only see once every 2 or 3 years. But then there's just this great fire and energy, whether it be, I enjoy deeply passionate, loving relationships. Again, that may be something that you have a hard time with, because, it's like people that lean really over on the swingers side of things, or friends with benefits. Oh, I can't let my emotions turn to love, but I enjoy those juicy, loving relationships. And I find that adds to my satisfaction and pleasure when I can enjoy the emotions and also enjoy the sex in that relationship. And so maximizing magnetically. We're going to just take a quick break here, a little commercial break, telling you about the Elf Academy. As I mentioned about the free membership that you can get. And Kat and I started the Elf Academy. It's an online platform for you to learn about living an elf life that you love the most, maximizing your satisfaction and pleasure. Not creating a life like I have, creating a life that is the best life for you. You develop your natural magnetic energy, helping you maximize your satisfaction and pleasure in love, sex, and relationships, work and wealth, health and wellness. Now, our mission at the Elf Academy is to help you magnetically transform your life so that you create an Elf ECNM life that you love the most, maximizing your satisfaction and pleasure. Members of the Elf Academy create a community where they magnetically stick together and support one another, creating a life they love the most. And so this is one of the really valuable parts of your free membership, is that once you get into the academy, you'll be able to join it's a Facebook group, but it's our exclusive community. You can't join the group if you're not a member of the academy. And so you'll be able to join the exclusive Facebook community, where then you can then have conversations with others and discuss, because there may be things, for instance, as I mentioned, it's the process is to reframe, which is gathering more information about how to maximize your satisfaction and pleasure in your easy, liberating, fun, ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. So sometimes you have to gather information, and good place to gather information from is other people have also been through things. And that's where it's good to have a community. And then after you reframe, then you start transforming, but when transforming, it's like, okay, but what steps can I take to make the changes? Like when I started to need to wean Kat and Chris off of that constant attention that I give my partners, that really created limitations and restrictions, and after a while it got obligatory, and so that we can create it so that it's easy, liberating, and fun for everybody. As I mentioned to Chris then recently, and I almost started telling you about this conversation a moment ago, but I mentioned Chris recently. It's not like that I'm not thinking about her, and that I think about her all the time. But the thing is that I'm wanting to keep my personal energy when I'm also then devoting time to my work, or devoting time to Kat, or devoting time to my girlfriend on my Thursdays, where I have a play date with my girlfriend every Thursday, or devoting time to another relationship that I'm kind of, trying to connect with someone on. Whatever the situation be, I want to be able to take and really focus my energy, my words, my thoughts, and my feelings on that present moment, and not be thinking about, I should be calling Chris, or I should be calling Kat, or I should be emailing or texting or whatever. I want to be able to enjoy my life in an elf way. And so the academy, the members of the academy, that's a place then you can go and you can say, hey, this is what I'm not finding that I'm maximizing my satisfaction and pleasure because of this. What can I do? What can I do? What am I not seeing here? What do I need to reframe? Because that's what we're doing. We're reframing things. We're really taking and getting a different perspective on things. And that's what I've done through the last 5 years of my life, is I started to transform that from being a monogamous, trying to fit a monogamous life into a non-monogamous frame. And now saying, no, it's two different structures. And now we got to figure out how to create that non-monogamous structure. And I don't have all the answers myself at this point. And so many people that I talk to that are leaders in the non-monogamous community, whether it be polyamory or swinging and open relationships, this whole idea of two different structures, that's foreign to them as well. And so this is kind of where, again, this is a life that I am creating for myself, an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life that is easy, liberated, and fun. And I'm creating this life for myself, but then I'm also helping other people to create that life too. And this is then where we're going and where we're headed in the future, and what we want to create for more people that are living ethically and consensually non-monogamous lives, so they can live it the elf way. So maximizing magnetically means, and a question then would come up, do you have a community that encourages each other in order to do what treats them best, or to do what treats them best? Or let me start that over. Do you have a community around you that's going to support you and encourage you to do what treats you best, living where life treats you best, with people who bring out the best in you, so you live the best authentic life, not being stuck where you are treated any way that is less than the best? Most of us don't. And that's what the ELF Academy can bring to you. Now, ultimately, though, we want you to be having more safe, sane, and consensual sex with more often, with more people, living a life of sexual abundance instead of staying on the path of sexual scarcity and boredom. And there's that discount code. And so that you want to write this down, discount all in capital letters, 92, no space between discount and 92, but discount 92. And there's a link down there in the description. You can put that, click on that link for the course. There's one link to join, get your free membership, and it's a separate link in order to check out the course. And so about living an ELF life and 92% discount. So always remember to have safe sex with lots of people. Having more safe, sane, and consensual sex with more people more often. Always remember to do that, because that makes life so much more pleasurable and more satisfying. So please, for me, subscribe, hit the bell, give the video a like, comment, and ask questions. And this is a big topic for me to try to cover tonight, and so I couldn't get to everything, all that I could, but I think I covered quite a bit of it here and helped you. I start to try to stretch and exercise your mental and emotional muscles so that you can kind of then go down a path to live a life that is more satisfying and more pleasurable as an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life that is also easy, liberating, and fun. So that's all, folks, and thanks for tonight. And we'll be back here next Monday night at 8 p.m. And so I'll look forward to seeing you then. And I'll go ahead just real quick, just in case there's any questions in the questions or comments that I need to address. And no, I don't see any questions or comments. And so then we'll go ahead and call this a wrap then. And thank you for your time tonight. And we'll see you back here next week.